I'm kind of in the middle of a bunch of random things, but I think maybe it'll be fun to make another video here. So I've pulled the enclosure out of the back of the van and tilted it down onto the ground. This makes it easier for me to work because at least there's a little bit of an angle that the enclosure has, so that if I'm going to try and test fit these drivers, it's not a completely vertical install. And even though these are like roughly 45-50 pound drivers, trying to hold them in place, it's quite difficult. Watching videos of people do 110 pound drivers, I get the struggle. So where are we at with this? I pulled the enclosure out so that I could blow some of the sawdust out, and I took my wood filler and I sort of just dressed the surface of this enclosure, and then I sanded it, rough sanded, get an idea. I think it's going to be sufficient. Likely I might leave this enclosure sitting like this and do stain and finish, and then slide the enclosure back in afterwards, rather than potentially make a big mess inside the vehicle. And I'm not that motivated to take the enclosure completely out because I don't exactly have the resources to put it back in. So here's one driver mounted. I am doing this so that I can like locate the driver and pilot drill, pre-drill the mounting holes. So I've got that one in. I don't know if I've discussed this part. These drivers are a hair smaller diameter. The cutout is would need to be about 3/16 smaller, almost an eighth total. So there's just over a 16th per side from it being like a nice slip fit. And I think in one of my previous videos I talked about how if I get it right, the driver will be very snug to the ring, to the cutout, and that sort of also helps hold it in place, at least in a vertical position like this. But that won't be the case here, so all of the load will be on the mounting screws. Slightly less than optimal, but I guess it's fine. I have marked. I had this, and I've pre-drilled these holes. And despite it being a little bit of an oversized hole, I still feel like I have easily 3/4 between the outside edge. So I'd like to think that I've got plenty of surface area there. Should be in good shape. I'm not sure if I made a video of this yet, but I have glued little squares where the driver gets mounted. So now we've got twice as much material for the screws to mount to, or to grip into, and it saves weight. So I've been doing it that way for a long time, and I've never had any trouble. I admit this is the most elaborate, potentially the most pressure building setup that I've ever had. Guess we'll see how it holds up. But if you've never seen it done this way, this is a way to have plenty of meat for your screws, but then lightweight, material savings, and a sense of simplicity. So what else is interesting for conversation here? I don't know. Nothing else has been done to the van itself, but it might be kind of cool to stand back and look at this monstrosity. I think it's absolutely hilarious. I've never built it's more or less a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot enclosure. If it's in the van, it's kind of cool, right? I think it's fun. Let's see what else is fun. No, that's about it. Just looking at it from different angles here. I have started staining, or finishing, if you will, some of the wall components. So they're stacked together and maybe kind of hard to see, but that's one side, that's the bottom, and then that's the other side. And I'm currently working on the components that are associated with the top. Let's talk about this. So the way that I've expressed that when the side of the wall is going to go in, and then there's a panel that's sort of with 45s sort of wedges into place to lock everything in. I'm gonna do something kind of similar up here. You can see that I've got some panels just screwed to the top of the enclosure with 45-degree angles. Back over here, these are going to be the top of the wall. And immediately I'm nervous that I do not have enough structural integrity. I just don't know how much pressure is going to be built. I don't know what's going to rattle where. I don't feel like overbuilding it until I know what's underbuilt. I'd rather stair step, incrementally go more overkill and more overkill, rather than just go way over the top from the beginning. So this is what we're going to do for a start. Let's see here. You can see these pieces I've got glued on at 45s, so they will sort of slot in to the pieces that are on the top of that enclosure. It happens that these are a nice snug fit between the roof and the top of the enclosure, sufficiently snug that it's a little bit of work to get them in and out. It's essentially the give that the headliner has, what material it's made out of, and the fact that it's not a rigid component in and of itself. These are able to sort of slide and wedge into place, but they wedge in fairly tight. And I carefully massage sanded so that the shape and contour is a pretty nice fit. Well, that being the case, there's not really a whole lot of lift that can be achieved. Now, these things could fold over, or they could slide in and out, but I'm hoping that with a panel here that's wedged in, it's going to prevent the thing from being able to pull back. What is going to prevent it from pulling forward? I haven't fully sorted that out yet, but at least it will not be able to be sucked in. And because we've got an edge here, that's going to be somewhat rigid. So I separated these into two pieces for ease of installation, right? And those will be able to suck right up against the edges of the vehicle. Then I built this little guy, and this guy is going to go something like this. And I'll be able to screw all three of these together. I'll be able to put some screws here and here and lock this together, or bolts or whatever, and be able to lock this thing together once it's up in position in the vehicle. Because it's kind of difficult to do as one big piece, but if they're two separate pieces, I can easily slide one in, put it into position, slide the other one in, put it into position, and I should be able to have this slid up into position, and it should go pretty chill, right? Once this glue is a little bit more dry, I'm going to sand that so it all matches. And the way that we've got paneling, let's see, zoom in, that one piece that's in the middle there, that is specific to this piece here. So here it's going to lock in, and then when all these are screwed together, there should be a sense of rigidity there. Now, I don't exactly have figured out how I'm going to prevent these from sliding out. With the side panels, the the B pillars prevent those pieces from sliding forward, and then the little pieces that attach to the enclosure prevent it from moving backwards. But I have not sorted out how to do that on this side with the top. What I think is going to end up happening is, despite me having stained these, is that I will end up gluing some more material. How am I going to do this? You know, what we might end up doing, I'm sort of like making this up as I record this video. What I might end up doing is sliding those back an inch so that these locate back further an inch. And then once these are in place, I might be able to put a strip of material that screws to the enclosure and sort of locks those in. I'm not convinced that that's going to be strong enough, rigid enough, integral enough. What I was thinking about doing is putting some vertical pieces, so those kind of lay horizontally on the top of the enclosure. I'm thinking about laying some vertical pieces so that, and then bolting those to the enclosure, and then those will bolt up to the back of this, and then I can screw directly into them. That was kind of what I was thinking I was going to do, but I just haven't done it. And so I'm not entirely sure, making this up as we go. But yeah, here's another video. Box is massive, isn't it? What else is useful for conversation? I think that's about it. I think we're gonna run that Down for Sound JP322 amplifier in this van. It's gonna, what is it? It'll get me 85% of the power that's needed, and I should be able to do some work with that configuration. Oh, another thought that I had while I've got your attention. I doubt I do, but here's to dreaming. I was considering mounting the amplifiers on the enclosure here. I didn't think I wanted to put them on the back. My battery bank is going to go in the very back. I was thinking about putting those here so that you could open this side door and have access to them, be able to see them and interact with them. I might have changed my mind because it'll be hotter back here than the cabin area. And I observed when these seats are in that there is a ton of space underneath the seats, tons of space underneath both seats. There's a lot. And I think that I might be wise to mount the subwoofer amplifier, because I'm only going to have the one, underneath one of these two seats. Or all of the amplifiers and DSP, all those components will get mounted under the seats. Whether or not I can get AC flow with any utility, and I won't know until we get there, but it would also be nice to be able to have immediate access from the driver's seat. You can kind of reach around the seat. It wouldn't be that hard to keep an eye on the amplifiers, as opposed to having them a little bit further out of reach. That requires a little bit longer run from the battery bank to the amplifiers, but I'm thinking that that'll be the case. Well, because of financial restraints, I won't have a battery bank for a while. And so we're probably going to be pulling power off of the battery and alternator setup that's currently in this vehicle, which is going to restrict the amount of electrical energy that I have available to power the system. And so because of that, because that's how we're going to start this build, having the amplifier under here makes a shorter run for me to get power to actually get the system up and running. And when finances come around, should they ever, cross your fingers, then figuring out maybe a long-term amplifier location or wiring configuration can be done. I wonder if there's something else I want to talk about. Speaker terminals. I had previously decided that I was just going to tap into the side of this wherever was close to where the amplifier was located. But because I'm going to probably mount the amp under the seat, that sort of changes what I was thinking. But I keep coming back to just down real low back there. And it would only be a 2-foot run, a 1.5-foot run to go from the amplifier over to that area and then just distribute the wiring where it needs to go. So I still think that this corner here is where I'm going to have those speaker terminals. I have some. I'll show you what I think I'm going to use, and you can roast me if you don't like what I'm going to do. So I'm currently running 14 gauge wire in the enclosure that's in my truck to that Dayton Audio Ultimax 18. And I've got that JP322 bridged at 4 ohms, which hypothetically should be capable of 4K. And I just don't think that the speaker wire I'm using is a detriment. So for the sake of saying that, if I'm running 14 gauge to all the drivers, that should be plenty sufficient for that need. But here, These are from Parts Express. These are designed for 3/4 inch plywood. They're spring terminals. Are they the best? No, they're not. I'm thinking like some of the Steve Mead terminal blocks, like that grade is probably far superior. But these are fairly cheap. I think these are $10 or $11 for a pair. And I really like them because it's super easy. Like I don't have, like if I was gonna, I could get like copper or brass bolts and hardware and have some very heavy duty lugs for this enclosure. But then I would have to have terminal lugs for the wires. I have to crimp them on and solder them, and like the expense just goes up and up and up. With this, you know, being spring terminals, I don't have to put any terminals on the wires. Just what kind of current flow do you get out of these? Are they a crutch? Are they gonna, you know, if I was running over 8,000 watts, maybe, but I'm not. And so I kind of think that those are going to be just fine. So I'll put all 4 of those down at the bottom of that enclosure at the front there. And as far as wiring goes, because that's a 2-channel amplifier that I have, I'm probably going to just run it in 2-channel. So being that these drivers are dual 4 ohm, I'll be able to run each driver's voice coils in parallel for a static 2 ohm load per driver. And then if I parallel the drivers together, I get a 1 ohm static load, which each channel is rated like what do you call it? It's supposed to be I don't know, it's supposed to be stable, I guess is the term they use. Stable at the 1 ohm load. And so that will set me up to be 1 ohm static per channel, which I could bridge the amplifier, and if you like series parallel that this array, I could still have a static load of 2 ohms, which the amp is at bridged stable at 2 ohms. But I just think I'll keep them separate. And so being that they're 2-channel, we'll have two outputs, and so I'll have, I'm zoomed in, sorry. We'll have a set per channel, and then on the inside of the enclosure we will just sort of double up the cables per terminal, and so each driver will get one 14 gauge set of wires, and then from the terminal I'll just daisy chain or parallel over to the other voice coil. I don't believe that I'm pushing that much current. I think that probably somewhere between 40 and 60 amps of current total, and so we're only going to be seeing something like 15 amps of current per driver, and 14 gauge wire should be just fine for 15 amps. Maybe even 20 amps would be fine. So I think that that's going to be fine. Yeah, there's video. Done deal. Until next time, guys.